Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm your host, Jill Ferguson, and today I have a special guest with me. Actually, all the guests are special. What am I saying? Right? Debbie Page. Debbie, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thanks, Jill. I love that we get a chance to connect like this. This is amazing.
Yeah. So you're in the Pacific Northwest, right? And but you're not going to be staying there for long, but you've been there most of your life, right?
Yeah. I grew up in Central Washington, so kind of small town girl, and then post college moved over to the wetter side of the state, as you and I both know, and then have just grown here professionally, over the last 30 plus years now. And yeah, here at the end of the month, my husband and I are starting what we're calling Life's Grand Adventure, which is a relocation, ultimate destination Spain, that now is going to have what I'm calling a layover for about 6 months here over the winter while we wait for a second property to sell. So yeah, so
Okay.
big exciting time.
That is exciting. And at 30 years, you don't look old enough for 30 years, but
We're so
I know how
sweet.
that
I love
goes.
it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Since I graduated from university at the same time, in high school around the same time you did. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
look, I'm loud and proud about it. I tell people I'm 55 years old, and there is something that comes with like arriving at this stage in life, which is I'm just going to own it. Like some days I feel like I'm 25, which I think. I think we all have kind of an emotional set point. Like I feel like I'm always 25, but some days, getting up and down and off the ladder and off the roof or home chores or whatever it is, I'm like, yeah, she doesn't feel 25 today. Yeah.
I can totally understand that. I think in a lot of ways I feel the same, but I also think like I'm glad I have a lot more wisdom than I did when I was in my 20s. So I
Girl.
wouldn't change that for anything.
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's, this is good for all, anybody watching or listening to just remember is, people will ask, like, would you go back and do anything different? And, I believe that every experience we have, every relationship that we make, every encounter that we experience, it's all put on the path to help us become who we are at each stage in life. And without those connections and opportunities or challenges or relationships, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so it's hard though, when you're in the mess of it, to be like, why me? Why now? Why all the things? And it's not until you come through the other side that you're like, oh, I see. Right. So it's learning that patience and wisdom, right?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And to look at things like even when you're in the crux of it and saying, no, this is a learning experience. Now what am I supposed to learn from this? Right.
I remember I had a coach one time who, John Dulworth, and I love this man to bits. And I said to him a couple years into our relationship, I said, John, I said, for the love of all that's sacred, I said, I feel like we've talked about this like over the last couple of years, and I feel like I have the tools and the things, and yet like here it is again. And he said that's part of summary. What he said was that's part of the beauty of life's journey is when you think you got it, whatever it is, the lesson or whatever, it seems the universe, God, or higher power, however everyone wants to reference it, says, it might seem that we have a new opportunity to revisit this, right? To make sure that it's sticky. And I was like, curses, right? Like, I want to just move to the next thing. I'm a check the box kind of gal, but life doesn't always work that way.
No, and that's true. And I think sometimes we think when we get it, right, that there's still those underlying layers and belief structure that is still there that we haven't fully cleansed from yet, right, or gotten past. So I think that's yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
with
I was telling my my nephew, he is in college and will be graduating this next year or so, and I was saying the beauty of life is that, and this may be good news or bad news depending on the day you hear it, but there is no destination in the opportunity to learn. It's just part of the journey, and every day presents a new opportunity or possibility, and you just get really good at adapting and going with it. And it's like, I don't know if I wanted to hear that today. And I said, that's all right. We'll come back to it.
You're like, oh, think about it because maybe tomorrow will be a better lesson for you,
There
right?
you go. There you go.
So
Exactly.
you went to Washington State University. You're a cougar. My stepdaughter's a
Go
cougar. My
Cougs.
husband's a coug.
Yes.
Um, and you studied communications,
Mhm.
but yet most of the work, at least from an outside perspective, that you do is business strategy. It has to deal with finance. You've helped a
Mhm.
lot of women with their finances and business strategy because you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. Tell me how you ended up there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think when I went to college in the early 90s, I had this vision, Edward R. Murrow School of Communications, top
Mhm.
tier, communications program. And I had this vision that I was going to be the next Barbara Walters. I
Yep.
was going to be this woman, news reporter, cutting edge, great question asker, all the things, right? And what I really recognized pretty quickly into the program was my heart is too tender for that kind of career. And I'm not putting down women or men who pursue that, but there is a hard charging path that someone oftentimes, at least at that time, that's how it was presented to me, that you had to pursue in order to get ahead. And it was really heavy emphasis on competition, competition. And I was like, oof, this just sounds very exhausting, right? So I adjusted partway through the program and focused on public relations, communication. So really starting to understand how people communicate best with one another. And so I remember when I graduated from college, first person in my family to go. And I told my parents after graduation, I made my big announcement right before, and I said, and I'm moving to Seattle and I'm taking an unpaid internship. And they looked at me like, you just like scholarshiped your way through 3 years of college. You paid out of your own pocket for your last year. You're coming out with like barely any debt, and you're now telling us that you're taking this unpaid internship. Like, why would you do this? But what happened was it really gave me an opportunity to get clear. And I think this is something that it's important for young people to understand today is that we don't have to have it figured out at 22 or 23 or 24 or 25 and this like kind of pressure cooker that sometimes I think young people find themselves in, which is what are you going to do when you grow up? It's like I don't know, I'm still trying to grow up, like so I stayed in this place, Jill, of being really curious about the opportunities that presented themselves to me. And I found myself being a big yes. And so an opportunity presented itself after the unpaid internship, a well-paid, position for a 22-year-old, where I had a chance to travel all over the United States, program manage, understand communication styles and personal interaction. That landed me in an opportunity to work in financial services for a number of years, which ultimately led me to buying my first business. And it was that first business. I didn't know how to run a business. I was really good at financial planning and financial advising and sales and those conversations to get people to move forward. Again, I think a lot credited to communications. But when I launched that business, I quickly realized that there is a different skill set from being a great practitioner to being a great CEO.
Yeah.
And you have to surround yourself with people. And so after a number of years of running that business and growing it to that multiple seven figure mark, I came to the conclusion that my work there was done and it was time to sell it.
What type of business is it? Was it?
Yeah, it was a financial services company, so an independent financial brokerage.
Mhm.
We had about 18 people who worked for us, two full-time office administrators. I had a brick and mortar, and Jill, I was 32 years old when I launched that company, and I still to this day do not know how an office building in downtown Seattle let me sign a 5-year lease without I
Yeah.
still to this day there was no like big process. It was just like a handshake and sign the agreement and off we went. But I learned a lot, and when I sold that business, part of it, Jill, was in recognizing as a woman, and my work had been mostly with women in financial services, that there was a lot of mindset stuff and then a lot of women related to money. And then it was the situation of life finding women starting or inheriting businesses and not really having the skill set or the team around them. Like they have the attorney, they had the business banker, or they would have an accountant or a bookkeeper, but they wouldn't have like a business strategist to go with them. And I love untangling challenges. And so
Mhm.
people come to me because they think that like they have a money problem in their business. They really don't have a money problem. There's a problem upstream, but we're going to start because the money is the clue to what's happening. It's the symptom. And so now let's go figure out what to do. Like, where is this happening? And then clean everything else up. And I absolutely love working with my clients and seeing the impact that they have in the world when we can clean up what's happening inside their business. It's just transformational.
And you work with guys too, right? Not just
I do
women,
not.
or you do
No,
not? Oh, I didn't
I
know
do.
that. Okay.
Yeah, exclusively with women. And here's why.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was when I started my business, Jill, one of my mentors said,
Yeah.
niche in,
Oh,
get
yeah.
really specific, right? We've all heard that. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to focus on cash flow, finance, operations, women, but maybe I'll work with some men. And he said, I would challenge you as a man, like, get really clear. Do you want to work with a sector, a segment? Like, what do you like? Get really specific.
Mhm.
And I said, no, I can work with both. And what was interesting was after about a year, I had taken on about a half a dozen, male clients. And I got to the end of that year and I called them up and I said, I don't want to work with men anymore. And please, gentlemen listening to this, don't think I'm a man hater because I'm not. I love men. But what I realized was that the style in which I delivered the training, the coaching, and the support was not a style that was setting me as a coach and a consultant up for success with them for success in their business. And what I noticed was there was a lot of, like, I call it arm wrestling that was happening, right?
Mhm.
So someone would say to me, the gentleman would say to me, okay, let's engage in services for 6 months. Here's the challenges that I'm facing. And I take cool and I do the analysis and I come in with a proposal on what we're going to do. And 9 times out of 10, the conversation would start with, okay, well, that's fine, but we've tried that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so that would try something else. And when I would work with women, what I would notice is I'd make the presentation and the proposal, and they would say, okay, well, we've tried that. And I wonder why it didn't work. Like they would just immediately go into this place of curiosity instead of like, nope, we've already tried that. Nope, we've already tried that. Right. And so what I found was I'm going to be more effective and my clients are going to get better results if we spend less time arm wrestling. If we can just getting busy with the productivity and the process we need to do. So yeah, so no, gentlemen. So I refer them out to other guys.
That's nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, will you continue to be doing this work, regardless of where you're going to be located in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think, I think so I've been self-employed since I was 26 years old and launched my first company at the age of 32. So now, 20 plus years, over 2 decades of doing this. And when I launched my company, Jill, I thought, this was kind of at the forefront of, what we now call a digital nomad, somebody who could work from anywhere. And I loved the idea of having that flexibility. What I didn't realize at the time was that the last 2 decades were going to be filled with a lot of, I'm going to say, grief and sadness and sorrow and caregiving and adjusting to the demands of being an only child with aging parents, a woman who had been previously married to an alcoholic, navigating the and grieving the end of that relationship and revisiting what the present and the future could look like. And so when I think of, having the laptop lifestyle, like I envisioned like beaches and fun cocktails. And what it turned out to be times over the last 2 decades was, sitting in the lobby of a hospital while, one of my parents was, in care, or, at the time my then husband, was in recovery. And so I'm in the parking lot on visitation days so that I can go be with them, but I need to, meet with a client. So I'm in the car. Like, when I thought of the flexibility that a mobile life and a mobile business would have, I didn't know that it would afford me that kind of opportunity to be as successful as I've been able to be. And so going into the future, it's so wonderful to know that my clients have embraced, because again, it's about communication. sharing the exciting news about this transition. They all said yes. They all want to continue working together. And I think it will open up more opportunities. So I'm the one changing time zones. And so I'll just adjust my work hours, which I'm good with.
And that's funny because when you announced on, I think it was on LinkedIn that you'll be leaving and it was in your newsletter, I was like, good for her.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I've done that kind of route of working, being able to work from anywhere and thinking like, oh, this will be awesome because, I can go on business trips with my husband when he was traveling and stuff. And instead of understanding that, like, I need this flexibility as I go through a divorce, right? That I can work from anywhere or anytime. And I've had the same as you, sat in the lobby of a hospital and had a video meeting while my dad's in the middle of surgery. And it's just like, and the people are like, well, you could have like not taken this meeting. And it's like, well, I'm just sitting here for hours anyway. Like I might as well do something productive while I'm sitting here waiting.
Well, and isn't it important, at least I know for myself, Jill, and when I talk to other women, there are these, I considered those moments like touchstones. It was like, in this chaos that was happening, whatever it was, there were these moments of what I considered normalcy. Like there was routine, there was structure in it. So again, my dad and I used to talk a lot about this, in life, there are things that we can influence or control and things that we can't, right? So he always encouraged me to focus on what I could influence and control. And in situations like that, when his health was failing, what I could do was I could be present for him 100%. And then he could take a nap and I could go step into a waiting room. Or you, while your father is in surgery, you can be 100% present for him. And as he's taken off to surgery, you then can say, okay, now I need a moment to remind myself that I also am this whole human with a purpose, and it is in many ways, I think, a way that we fill our cups up.
Yeah, I agree. So I think another way we fill our cups up, and I know this is a topic near and dear to you because I've seen you write about it before, is with our animals that live with us, right? My heart broke for you when you lost one of your pets.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, so I think so right now, so thank you for this. So I think that I am a dog person. Like, I'm just going to put that up
Me
front.
too.
I am 100% team dog. I have had cats in my life. I had one cat that I got in college, and this sweet old man lived for 23 years. I mean, I said when he passed, like, I had my cat. Like I had cats as a kid, but he was my cat. And so, it's like, I think when we go through things in life, as young professionals, as young adults, like, he was there through it all. And so I was like, I'm good. No more cats. But dogs have always been my thing. And I got Harley Hounderton, who I consider my heart dog. Like I have two knuckleheads who I absolutely love right now. But they're just some dogs that are the heart dog, and Harley was my heart dog. And so after he passed, it was at a time when I was caregiving for my mom, who was in the final stages of dementia, Alzheimer's. And I just knew I needed that dog energy back in the house. And so I rescued, about 3 months after he died, I rescued a recently retired Washington State Patrol bomb sniffing dog. And so he's a Labrador Retriever, which is my preferred breed. And he had been a working dog his entire life. And so imagine, I think about this, like even as humans, we have this hard time. Like he went literally overnight from being working dog, right? On the deal, patrolling for the state ferries, doing special events, football games, at all the stadiums, doing all this stuff to, he doesn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
No purpose, no identity.
Poor dog.
I know. He had never been, Jill, he'd never been in a house before until he came into my house. Like when he was brought to me, I asked them, like, is he potty trained? And they're like, we don't know. I was like, oh, guess we're going to find out. Okay. And now, interestingly, because this is the way the universe works, after Harley had passed that summer, I had reached out to a breeder And so keep in mind, and this is like a year since this 21. So we're still kind of in the tail
Mhm.
of COVID, right? And I had reached out to a breeder I'd been following for a long time, and I felt like I had one more puppy in me. And she said, "Great, we'll put you on the list, but it's probably 2 years, you know." And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, this will be good. Like 2 years, that's fine, no big deal. I had already started the process to adopt this canine, and I thought, okay, this will be great. So the day I signed the paperwork, Jill, and this is the universe like chuckling at you. The day I signed the paperwork for the canine to adopt him, that evening I got an email from the breeder that said that somebody had passed on a puppy. It was a male, and that he would be available right about Thanksgiving. And if I wanted, I had moved to the top of the list. And I went, of course, this is the way it's going to be. And so, yeah, so that was when Walter entered the picture. And so keep in mind, kind of during that time, about 3 weeks after the canine came in, my mom passed away. And so there was this, it's amazing to me how animals, appear just at the right time. Like I had been in so much caregiver mode. Now I had this canine that I'm helping transition and understand how to dog for the first time in his life. And, he never played with toys and things like that. And now I have a puppy. Right. So it's just, yeah, they are
Who wants
just
to play all the time?
all the time. And yet, look, it is hard to be sad when there is this cute puppy breath thing all in your face all the time. And so, yeah, so they are very sweet and lovable. And one of them's laying here next to me right now, and the other one is outside watching the world.
And how do they
yeah.
get along? Did they get along okay from the beginning or no?
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing. So Walter the puppy, so he's 4 now. And as a puppy, he was convinced that he was going to win the canine over. And the canine was solitary. He'd never been around other dogs. And so I had to work to socialize him and all the things. And I had a little concern about bringing a puppy in. At first, he was indifferent. And then he was tolerant. And somewhere there's this picture of they're laying on the couch next to me. So Buster, again, the canine, first time being in a house in his life, first time being on a couch, and the puppy has crawled right on top of him and is like laying on him. And I just was like, oh my God, they're the sweetest. So they're definitely a bonded pair now for sure. Very sweet dogs. Yeah.
And I'm sure they get lots of exercise with you every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're out at least once a day, if not twice a day. Much to my husband's chagrin, they have clothes, so they have coats.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, you live in the Pacific Northwest, so.
Exactly, right. So they have, raincoats, and they have the younger one is very slender. And so he has like a fleece coat. And yeah, my husband's like, dogs don't need coats. And I'm like, says you. So
Well,
yeah.
if they don't have enough fur, they certainly get cold in cold weather.
Yeah. So we try, I think routine is important, not only for them, but for me. And I know that, every morning getting out and, the exercise, and it's as much just like taking a deep breath. And then on an afternoon, it's not uncommon. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Like some days you just need to step away from the computer, no matter what looming deadline is there or what is kind of in front of you, to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to be more productive if I just step away for 30 minutes, go take a walk, get some fresh air, even if it's rainy, and then come back and finish this off. So I don't know, what kind of like routine do you find, in the dog space yourself? What is that like for you?
So my dogs have trained us well, right? Right now I have 2 rescue dogs.
Okay.
And they get up between 4 and 4:20 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get up, they want to eat some kibble, then they go outside and do their thing, and then they come back in and they go back to bed.
Right.
And then around 5:15, they're like, hey, we need a Kong with some peanut butter in it. And then before around 6:30, it's like, okay, we need to go for our first walk of the day. And we walk between 5 and 7 miles a day.
I love it.
So we go out and do our first hour and a half walk, and we're usually back by 8 o'clock at the latest from doing that. And then around 2 o'clock, they start getting pushy again. Well, they get pushy about some lunch at 11. And so what we've done is we've divided their meals into smaller quantities so that they can have meals more frequently. And so at lunchtime they get raw dog food from a local place that makes it here.
Okay.
And so they'll have a little bit of that. And then that's at 11. They prefer to eat at 11 since they've eaten so early the
Mm.
first meal.
Mm.
And then around 2, they start poking at us, being like, come on, come on, come on, come on. We have a yard that they can go
Yeah.
out in all day long if they want. But one of my dogs prefers to poop not on his own property.
Discriminating tastes. I
Yeah,
understand. Right.
yeah. He just doesn't want to mess up his own space if he doesn't have to. So even though we
So
pick it
funny.
up right away. But
Right. That's
so
too funny.
so about 2, he'll come and be like, okay, we gotta go. Come on, we gotta go. And so
Yeah.
usually from around 2 to 3, unless there's like if I have a meeting scheduled at 2 and I can't get out in time, then we'll go at 3. But sometime between 2 and 3 we leave and we do our afternoon walk and then we come back and and then they're all ready at 5 o'clock or a little before they think they need dinner.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh. Too sweet. I love it.
yeah.
I love it. That's so good.
But yeah, and I understand totally what you're talking about having a heart dog because the dog we had before these ones we were definitely soul connected,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact I even said to my husband that when it was Nacho's time, number one, he would let us know, and he
Mm-hmm.
did. It was like today's the day, we're done. I want to be done. He was really sick, and I also said to my husband that when it was time for us to get a new dog, Nacho would send us a new dog. And he was like, how is that going to happen? And I said, I have no idea. And 2 weeks after Nacho passed, I got an email from a client.
Mm.
And it was a very unusual email because usually he wrote a bunch of stuff in an email.
Yeah.
And this one just had a subject line that said, my angel doing what she loved. And his wife had died unexpectedly in May, and Nacho died in August of the same year. And when I opened the email from the client, there was his deceased wife with a picture of a dog. And I was like, I don't understand. And so the place that was in the subject line that was mentioned, I looked up where it was, and it turned out it was a dog rescue organization. And Nacho was a red heeler Australian cattle dog, and they're not very common around.
Mm-mm.
There's blue heelers more than red, and even then, they're still not very common. And when I went to the website of the place that was mentioned in this email, the first dog on their website on the homepage was, we just got this dog in and it was a red heeler. And I was like,
Thanks, Nacho.
yeah. I'm like, hey.
Honey, you wanted to know how? Here's how.
That much. Yeah. And I asked him and he's like, I'm not ready. And I said, that's okay. Then and then the next day he's like, did you call about that dog? And I said, no, because you said you weren't ready. And he's like, no, we need to call because I think that's supposed to be our dog.
Mm.
And we had, so I called, and it was a dog who had been through a whole lot of trauma, and from somebody who did not understand how cattle dogs are.
Mm.
The place that had rescued her only would allow cattle dogs to go to previous cattle dog owners or humans, because they understood how specific the breed is and how hypersensitive they are to stuff. And so we ended up adopting this dog we had a lot to work with her. She was so upset about so much in life, had been through so much.
Poor baby.
Hell. It was crazy. But then we got her in September of 2020. And a year later, I got a call from somebody else that said, hey, there's a cattle dog mix that's on its day 59 at a kill shelter. So the next morning it was scheduled to be put down. Could you go get them? And so a neighbor and I drove up north in LA, and rescued this dog and brought him home. And he is the sweetest dog ever. He's also been abused and has trauma, but he's just like, cattle dogs are really interesting because they don't act super doggy. They're like really smart, and they're just not like I don't know how to describe it really, but and this dog, even though he's part cat or dog, he's the dog.
Yeah.
He acts like dog. It's just funny because that's what my husband said. He was like, "Wow," he's like, we got a dog again, like a dog that wants to act like a dog, not part human."
Sweet. I love it. And what are their names?
Coconut is the first one that we rescued in 2020, and the other dogs came with the name Casper, and we just kept it because it fits him. But
I
yeah,
love it. That's so sweet.
your dogs always have pretty unique names. How do you
Yeah.
choose dog's
So
name?
yeah, yeah. So Harley, so Heart Dog Harley, I named him because the family I adopted him when I got him when he was a puppy, and he was with his litter mates and his mom in the big pen. And it was with a couple who collected Harleys, and so they had
Oh,
all these Harleys in the garage. And so I was like, he picked us, as they do, right? So the puppy came
yeah.
up and like started eating my shoelaces, and I was like, that's the one. And so driving home, we were thinking like Tank, and I was like, no, it's Harley. Like, there's only one name for this dog, it's Harley. And then Buster, the canine, he came with that name. And I
Okay.
really
Yeah.
debated about changing his name, but he was 8, so he's 12 now.
He's
And I
got a
just
lot
thought,
of
gosh,
identity with that name. Yeah.
yeah. And I just thought, he's going through a lot. I don't think trying to get him to understand a new name is going to be really helpful. And then when I got the puppy, so I always love old man names and dogs. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but I think they're adorable. And so my husband's daughter was a junior in high school at that time. And I said to her, she's like, "What are you going to name the puppy?" And I said, "I don't know." And I said, "I want old man names. And so you come up with your favorites." And so she came to me with a list of 4 names. And I was like, I really like Walter. And so when I drove over to Othello to pick him up, and I was like, yeah, you're a Walter. It just fits. So yeah.
I like
So
that.
I love, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah, sort of destiny, I think.
Yeah. And it's amazing the amount that the dogs understand and know, right? What you're doing with them. Like Casper is the one that came with that name. He was an owner surrender. But so we learned later, not the day we brought him home, when we had to out an hour and a half drive to bring him home.
Mhm.
Um, but that drive, he sat on the back seat in the middle where he could like look out the window, and
Mm.
he was super happy. And it wasn't until we tried to take him somewhere later that we learned he's scared to death to be in a car, and he vomits and he shakes and he drools, and you literally have to sedate him if you have to drive him anywhere.
Um,
And somebody
um,
has to sit in the back with him and hold him and keep telling him he's okay. But he
mm,
wasn't the day that we brought him home. He must have understood that we had saved his life on some level. He was
mhm.
happy, happy, happy to get out of that really loud kennel with
Yeah.
hundreds of dogs. And he was just didn't make a peep, didn't drool, he didn't get sick, he didn't do anything. And then ever since then, he's always done that on a car trip,
Oh my
or
gosh.
in a car ride.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. And the person that went with me, the neighbor that went with me to go get him, he bonded to him immediately, and that's like his favorite person that he sees that doesn't live in our household. And so he likes to see him every day, and he gets all, I want to kiss you, kiss you, kiss you with him. So which is
That's,
nothing like a 45-pound dog with very long legs jumping and trying to
mm, mm,
kiss your ears and face.
that's so fun. Yeah, they're the
But
best.
yeah, yeah. And so they're going to move with you.
Yeah, they are. And I will tell you, Jill, of all the logistics,
Uh-huh.
selling 2 houses, literally selling everything that we own other than, a couple of bins of personal items.
Yeah.
The Tetris of trying to move 3 big dogs, because I have my 2 labs and then my husband has a collie.
Oh,
It is
okay.
it is the Tetris of moving these dogs internationally that's the most stressful because it's the
Mhm.
timing of
Yeah.
everything. And we're fortunate because in Spain, in the EU as a whole, there is no quarantine period, but it's
Mhm.
the timing of the documentation that you have to get in the United States from the Department of Agriculture within a very tiny window before your departure. And that can only be done with a very specific veterinarian who has to, like, it's just
Mhm.
all these logistics. And then it's the whole emotional piece of I'm going to put, these, 75-pound dogs in kennels, and they're all kennel trained, so it's not the issue, in a very foreign and unfamiliar environment with very foreign and unfamiliar smells, loading, they're going to be out of our chain of custody, like all the
Yeah.
things. And so the thing so that stresses me out. But what reassures me is finding people who have done this successfully, who share really openly with their heart that it was also the most stressful thing for them. And that when they landed on the other side and they were able to pick up their friends, in baggage claim, once they cleared customs and got them cleared from customs, like the dogs were nothing but excited to see them. Like, and I think that's the other thing. Dogs teach you about resilience, right?
Yeah.
Both of us having rescued, they
Yeah.
teach us about resilience and they teach us about presence,
Yeah.
right? So for them in that moment, that rearview mirror, that's already gone. Like they
Yeah.
are just so now because you're in front of them and that's what they care about. And so I just keep reminding myself it's going to be fine. I might need the tranquilizer, not the dog. But I know we're all going to get there safely, and that's what matters.
And why Spain?
Yeah, so I have been going to Spain since 2014, and I have gone. The first time I went in 2014, I just fell in love. I fell in love with the people and the culture and the history and the food and everything about it. And I remember writing in my journal that New Year's Eve. So I went between Christmas and like the third week of January. So I was there for about 3.5 weeks. And I remember writing in my journal on New Year's Eve, I'm going to live here one day. Like, I will live here one day. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but every time I would go, and I would go about every 18 months, I would go to a different part of Spain. I would tour properties, abandoned homes that needed crazy amounts of updating,
Mhm.
beautiful, brand new homes that, you look like they came right out of a magazine and anything in between from in city townhome condo, apartment kind of dwelling to rural, finca, what they would call an estate, which always
Yeah.
makes me chuckle. And I knew that it just fit. And so when my husband had a chance to, it looked like he'd be able to retire in the next 2 years, we made a plan that we would do this in 2027. And then, as is the case, life says, okay, well, what if we gave you an opportunity to do it sooner? And so his employment situation changed. He was able to retire this year. And we thought, he could either go and find work in the same field he'd been in, or we could hit hard pause, finish a remodel on his house, and accelerate our plan and be gone by the end of the year. So the plan is we will be gone from the Pacific Northwest by the end of the year, but not
Mhm.
to Spain because we still have his house to sell here. And there's some logistics around the tax treaties between the United States and Spain. And if the house sells after the first of the year, kind of the impact to us financially. So we're in
Yeah.
a little bit of holding pattern, but we decided about a month ago that moving to a destination that would have been on our list to go to get the dogs a direct flight to
Mhm.
Spain made a lot of sense. And so we thought, let's go, we've never lived in Texas, we've lived in the state of Washington. So let's go to Texas for the winter. Let's be around some more sun. Let's go explore kind of the Southwest and just consider this part of the adventure. And then when we're ready to go, we're ready to go.
Yeah. What part of Texas are you moving to?
So we'll be outside of Dallas, between Plano, Allen,
Okay.
McKinney.
Yeah.
So, suburb area. I have clients who are in Texas, and so they're capitalizing on this opportunity to bring me in for a little more work, which is exciting.
Good.
And I know a few people there. My husband has some people that he knows, so it's a good soft landing too.
Mhm.
We both have very deep roots here and big networks, and so the chance to kind of plug in. somewhere else and have a little bit of a softer landing because everything's going to be new. Right.
Yeah.
So if you think about
Yeah.
that, I don't know where I'm going to get my hair done. I don't know where the dry cleaner is going to be. I don't know where I'm going to get my groceries.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like where, I don't know where I'm going to get the oil change in my car. Like, you don't know those things. And
Yeah.
so for us, as we talk about it, imagine what that's like in Spain, right?
Yeah.
So this is a good kind of exercise program, flex the muscles and learn a little bit about adaptability before we have to make what will ultimately be the biggest adaptable situation
And
created in.
did you find the place you want to move to in Spain? Pretty
Yeah, so
much.
we have it narrowed down to a geographic area. We went earlier this year, and so we're looking on the Mediterranean side between probably Malaga and a city called Cadiz. So from where the Atlantic comes in along the southern part of Spain, and then up into the Mediterranean. My husband loves sport fishing, and so
Okay.
there's great sport fishing there. The weather is really lovely. It's very warm in the summer, obviously, but very good climate, lots of culture, and I think a good mix for us between expat communities. So if we
Mhm.
need to, kind of plug into English speaking,
Yeah.
giving our brain a rest and really plugging into the culture and the history of, local communities, I think we can find it all there. So we're excited. So when we do land, we'll do a series of kind of VRBO short-term rentals while we kind of
Mhm.
get closer to, yep, this is where we want a long-term rent. And then we'll start looking for a property. And the intention is to live there for one full year to really understand from a weather standpoint and a culture standpoint where we really want to call home base. And then we'll start looking for a home after that.
So that's a lot of changes for the dogs, kind of, if you move from VRBO to VRBO, like, well, Texas and then that, and then, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of change. And these guys have been good. I sold my house in July. My husband was in the process of doing a major renovation on his home. So context. So we've been together for 10 years. We just got married this summer. We had maintained separate households. When when my dad passed away, I had moved my mom in with me, and he and I had been together for about 5 years at that point. And we'd been talking about moving in together. But when dad passed away, the decision to move dementia mom in with his beautiful, brilliant, angsty teenage daughter and try and combine households was like, ooh, we may not be setting ourselves up for success. So
Yeah.
I said, what if I move closer to you? And so I bought a house that was literally like 5 minutes away. And so we were able to do lots of supporting. And then once she graduated here a couple of years ago, we've been talking about what it would look like to, merge households and all that. And so when we decided to do this move, his commitment was, let's get in and let's do this major home remodel. And I sold my house very quickly. And fortunately, a friend of mine who was recently divorced said, well, why don't you come stay with me, bring the dogs? That way you don't have to live in the middle of a remodel with the dogs
Mhm.
in your business. And so I've been staying with her and her dogs. So, there's two of us, great women, 4 dogs. So I will tell you the transition, the first couple weeks was hard. The puppy had only, he's 4 now, but still the younger one, he'd only lived in one place. And so he didn't understand, like, wait a minute, all my stuff has moved. This isn't just vacation, right?
Mhm.
And the canine had gotten, it was really his only home that he had known. So it took us a little time to adjust, but they're very resilient. And we've done a fair amount this summer of kind of being on the go. I've been doing what I call the adios tour, which is seeing friends in different parts of, the Northwest in particular. And so doing road trips with the dogs. And so I think helping them understand that, to the degree that I believe they understand, as long as we're together, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And, it's not about the building and the space. And kind of one of the things we talked about with these walks, it's about the routine. No matter where we are, we're going to do the routine. We're going to take the walk. We're going to eat at
Mhm.
the same time. We're going to have the playtime and all this stuff. So yeah, it'll be a lot of change for them. But these not little dudes, but these dudes they are resilient, and they're always up for an adventure. That's the thing I love about Labrador Retrievers, man. They're like, let's go,
Oh,
let's.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, and do you have, as we wind down here, do you have a favorite advice about love, or a favorite song, or
Yeah,
bit of
for me,
writing or a quote?
yeah, I don't really have a quote or a song,
Uh-huh.
but what I will say is that I what I have learned at this point in my life, and it could be different a year from now, but I think this will always be, a core belief or value for me is that, you know, it, the love that you give yourself is the greatest love that you can ever experience. And when you can truly love yourself for all the bits and baubles, right?
Mhm.
I don't like to think of them as warts and things, but the bits and baubles, it's all of what makes you you, and understanding that there's only one you, and you were put here on this planet at this particular time for a very specific reason, even if you aren't really clear right now what that is. But if you can love yourself for where you are in the journey that you're on and the contribution that you're making, it actually opens up opportunities for you to receive love at a level that you can only imagine. And I would probably put a pin on the final point to say, let people love you. Like, don't hold them at arm's length, and let them love you the way that they need to show love, because that's also important in this whole process. So I love the idea of love. I love the elements of love, and I love how we can show it to ourselves, to one another, to little creatures in our lives. We can have love for hobbies and experiences, and it's a word I think we need to use more of, more than ever before.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming on the show today.
I love it. Thanks for having me. This is lovely.
Thank you.